for later. All right, so today we're going to look at long dividing polynomials. Our learning target for today: determine the quotient of two polynomials and prove a polynomial identity and use it to describe numerical relationships. So we warmed up by long dividing with numbers. The process with polynomials is exactly the same, except now we have some letters in there. So we're going to use long division to find the quotient of, well, we don't have to do that, we already did it. We did one better. Kind of, but we call it synthetic. And we'll get into that later. All right, so actually I think we'll get into it later today, but we'll see. It'll be today or tomorrow. So example A, we're going to divide x cubed minus 7x squared plus 14, and we're going to divide it by x minus 5, and we're going to use the long division method. So you notice it still has the little long divide bracket thing. Since this is what we're dividing by, it goes on the outside, and what's being divided goes on the inside, just like with the numbers. And so our first step is we're going to look at the x and our x cubed, and x goes into x cubed how many times? Twice. So we have x squared up top. So x squared times x gives us x cubed. So we're going to take this x squared and we're going to multiply it so that x minus 5. And that's where they're getting that x cubed minus x minus 5x squared. They're taking x squared times each of these terms. And then we're going to subtract it just like we do in long division, right? You subtract the 2. And so the difference between these is negative 2x squared, and then bringing down that 0x and the 14. So now we're looking at x goes into 2x squared how many times? Go negative 2 times and x, right? So we have, and actually my thought process when I do it is x times what gives me negative 2x squared. That's kind of how I think about it. So negative 2 times x, negative 2x times x gives me negative 2x squared. So that's what I want to bring down. So I'm going to take this times each of my terms. And so negative 2x times negative 5 gives us positive x. But then we're subtracting, so that changes the signs of everything. So this negative 2x squared becomes positive. And this positive 10x becomes negative when we distribute that negative.
So is there one of those in your calculator?
No. So then we bring down, we take the difference between these two lines, and we get negative 10x plus 14. And so x times what gives us negative 10x? X times negative 10 gives us negative 10x. So we take this negative 10 times each of the terms. So x times negative 10 gives us negative 10x. Negative 5 times 10 gives us positive 50. We're going to take the difference between these, and their difference is negative 36. So that's our remainder. So up here, we have our, this is supposed to be x squared minus 2x minus 10. So make change on your books. But is it a squared in your book or is it a cubed? So x squared minus 2x minus 10 minus 36, and then divided by what we did, just like we did with our long division. That was our remainder divided by what we're dividing by. So this is our, when we divide these, this is what we get. All right, so it's one thing to read through somebody else's work. Let's just jump in and do one together.
What page are you on?
248. Now on 249. All right, so looking at this one, we need to decide what's going to go into our dividing house and what's on the outside.
X minus 4.
X minus 4. All right, so x minus 4 is on the outside. Alright, and it's always good to just double check to make sure that, our polynomial has all of its pieces. So we have 4s, x cubed, x squared, x's, and constant on the end. It's okay. We'll get there. Alright, so our first step. We need to look at our first term. So x times what number, what variable gives us x to the 4th? X cubed.
Three sides, make it sides, and put it like that way. Yeah. That's right.
Alrighty, so multiplying this out, x cubed times x is, and then x cubed times negative 4.
Because there's 2 sides of one square, and then there's 3 sides of a cube. Divided by.
Alright, so distributing our negative, this becomes negative 4, and then negative times negative becomes positive. So now x to the 4th minus x to the 4th cancels. So negative 2x cubed plus 4x cubed. Alright, so now looking at our first term x, x times what number is going to give us 2x cubed? So 2x squared times x minus 4. So 2x squared times x is 2x cubed. And 2x times 2x squared times negative 4. So distribute the negative. So 2x cubed minus 2x cubed is 0. 15x squared, negative 15x squared plus 8x squared is, and then bringing down.
We don't have to write the arrows, do we?
No, I'm just exaggerating that I'm bringing them down. Alright, so x times what value is going to give us negative 7x squared? So negative 7x times x minus 4. So negative 7x and negative 7x times negative 4. But we need to distribute our negative. So this becomes positive, this becomes negative. So negative 7x squared plus 7x squared goes away. 31x minus 28x, 3x, and then bring down our negative 12. So x times what number gives us 3x? 3. We have 3 times x minus 4. This one's still 0. Alright, so 3 times x gives us 3x, and 3 times negative 4, negative 12, distributing our negative. It cancels out, so this one also has a 0 remainder. Ooh. All right, so when we take, x to the fourth minus 2x cubed minus 15x squared plus 31x minus 12 and divide it by x minus 4, we get x cubed plus 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. So if we take this value, multiply it by that, we should get everything that's on the inside. Questions? It's not so bad, right? It's just take your time and keep your columns organized. I don't know. Let's see. All right, so I guess the next ones have remainders. All right, so let's look at number 2. So this one we have all right, so 2 and 3 are following the same format. So if we look at 3, find the quotient of, so we have, set it up. So what goes on the inside? Yep, so this is what's being divided. And this is what's doing the dividing. All right, so we have cubed squared x, and then we have a 0 on the end for our number. So make sure you add that because we may need that place value. All right, so looking at this, we're going to follow the same process. Our first term is x squared. X squared times what is going to give us negative 4x cubed?
It was the same.
All right, so here we're going to take negative 4 times each of our 3 terms. So negative 4 times x squared is, oops, I forgot the x. So negative 4x times x squared gives us negative 4x cubed. Negative 4x times 2x, negative 8x squared. And then negative 4x times 8. All right, but we're subtracting, so we need to do sign change to everything. All right, so negative 4x cubed plus 4x cubed. And then what happens to our squares? They zero out as well. But then we have 32x plus 32x, which is oh, it's minus. So that cancels out too, so that's 0. That one was not
an easy one.
That was an easy one.
Can we do one like that?
So if we take this times that, we'll get that top part there. So that one wasn't bad at all. Let's scroll back up and look at this one. So we have 2 plus x plus 2, and we're dividing that into x cubed minus x squared plus 4x plus 6. So let's work this one out. So x times what gives us x cubed? X squared.
No.
Alright, so x squared times x is, and x squared times 2. So distributing our negative, x cubed minus x cubed, negative x squared minus 2x squared. And then bringing down our 4x and our 6. Alright, so now looking at, we need to have negative 3x squared. So x times what gives us negative 3 squared? So x times negative 3x. So negative 3x times x is negative 3x plus 2, or times 2. So x times what gives us 10x? 10 times x plus 2. So 10x. Do your sign change. So 10x minus 10x. 6. Alright, so finally a remainder.
Yay.
Alright, so when we divide x plus 2 into x cubed minus x squared plus 4x plus 6, we get this, but then we have a remainder of negative 14. So this equals, and then we're just going to take this negative 14 and stick it over top of that. So negative 14 over x plus 2. And so
As if we have remainders?
As if you have a remainder, then you're just going to, whatever you're dividing by, you're just going to pop it over top of that to make a little rational expression fraction. And then you just tag it on to whatever you have up top. Alright. So now, how do we feel about long division? Yeah. Alright, so I'll give you an answer. There's another way of dividing, it's called synthetic division. Do you want to just focus on long division today, or are you comfortable enough with that to kind of look at something a little bit different? It depends.
We tried doing 2 options in chemistry. And
Yeah. Well, let me show it to you because it's not that bad.
I used to
It's a lot easier. It is a lot easier. Alright, so synthetic division, it is, let's look at this example. So we're going to take x to the 4th minus 13x squared plus 32, and we're going to divide it by x minus 3. So the first thing is the notation for synthetic division. We don't have the little division house. So when I write it, I just make like a little thing here. So we're dividing by x minus 3. Alright, so when we do long division, we keep it in that way. When we do synthetic division, we want to set it x equals to a number. So we have x minus 3. We're going to set it equal to 0, and we're going to divide by what x equals. So in this case, x equals 3. And so that's what we're going to divide by. So now how are they getting these numbers? Well, we're looking at the leading coefficients in front of each term. So this is x to the 4th. So we have x to the 3rd, x squared, x, and then our constant on the end. We need to include all of them. So in front of our x to the 4th, what's the leading coefficient? 1. X cubed. Is there an x cubed written there? No. So how many x cubes do we have? 0. So that's where that 0 is coming from. And then x squared, how many x squareds do we have? Negative 13. How many x's do we have? 0. And then constants on the end? 32. So that's where those numbers are coming from. So this 3 is what x equals, and these are all of the leading coefficients in front of each term. So the first step is you bring down whatever your first number is. It doesn't matter what it is, you automatically bring it down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to follow like a zigzag pattern, multiplying and adding. So we're bringing down our first term. Now we're going to take what we're dividing by. So 3 times 1, and that's where that number is coming from. So 3 times 1 is 3. And then we're going to add the coefficient in front of our x cubed and our 3 together. So 0 plus 3 is 3. so now we're going to fill in this number here. And so when we're moving on a diagonal, we're multiplying. And when we're moving down, we're adding. So 3 times 3 is 9. So then we're going to take negative 13 plus 9, negative 4. So now we're going to move on a diagonal. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Now we're going to move down. So we're going to add these together. So 0 plus negative 12 is negative 12. We're going to fill in this, so we're going to multiply. So 3 times negative 12 is negative 36. We're going to add these together to get negative 4. So now what happens is these are the numbers that go in front of all of our terms. So we have, when we divide, forgot what we were dividing. When we divide this x to the 4th by x, our first term is x cubed. So we're going to have 1x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x minus 12, and then our remainder is negative 4. So that converts to a fraction over what we were dividing by, the x minus 3. Alright, so do another one together, or not following their work. So let's look at A here. You okay? Okay. Alright, so we're going to set up our long division, or set up our synthetic division. So the first thing, what are we dividing by? X plus 4, right? So in synthetic division, we're not dividing that whole thing, we want to know what x equals. Alright, so x equals negative 4. Alright, so now what goes on this side, we're going to just use the coefficients in front of each term. But we need to make sure that we have all terms represented. So our highest power is x to the 3rd. So how many of those do we have? 1. So x squared, then x squared. X. And then our constant. Alright, so now we have that set up. We're going to bring our first number down. So now we're going to move in a diagonal. So negative 4 times 1. Alright, so this was x cubed, right? So this is x squared. So we have x squared minus x minus 6. So when we divide x cubed plus 3x minus, was it x cubed plus 3x minus 10x minus 24 divided by x plus 4, we get x squared minus x plus 6. And those no remainders. And that's it. So which do you prefer? The synthetic, right? It's
A lot less work.
It's a lot less work to get the same result. Which is always nice, right? You guys are always asking for the easier method. All right, so let's do some practice. How about you guys do B? So the first thing, we need to find what is x equal.
Sure.
And then when we're setting up the other side of our synthetic division, make sure that you have all of your terms. We got 5, 4, what are we missing? The cube, right? So how many cubes do we have? We have 0. So make sure you put a 0 in for cube. And then you have 32 for x squared, minus 48 for x, and plus 32.